So we start by creating the objects that'll represent the pulleys. Here we have the drive pulley that'll be on the far left side. This will be a shaft, and then this will be the medium-sized pulley and the large pulley. The trick is that you need to build your parts in layers, or build your connections in layers. So all we've done here is we attach this body to ground using a motor. If you double click the motor, we can change the oops, I didn't get the motor there, but if we use the property list here, we can grab the constraint. We can make our change to the speed of the motor if we want. We can change our units. If we go under view and numbers and units, the units can be changed in here. So we'll go ahead and we'll attach this shaft to the ground, or to the background, using a pin joint. And for some reason I'm not getting my little snap cross that shows up. You can see it on that green part. It's kind of there. You can see it better on the red. So on here it's difficult to see for some reason, but just hover over the point closest to center and it should snap to that point. So now that's attached to the background. That's the shaft representing it being fixed into the bearings. This is going to be the large pulley here. So the large pulley is what's going to be attached to the orange drive pulley here. So we'll just click and drag this over, and it should snap right to that point. You can see the end of that center line snapping right to the center of that point. So now with this pulley right here, you can tell by the color missing right here. This pulley, or this sheave, is behind the shaft. So if you were to come over and click on the rigid joint and then click at that point, it's going to attach the shaft to this piece right here. Let's just check it, let's run it, and it would fall if it wasn't connected. So next we need to bring in our medium-sized pulley. Oh, first let's do this. Since our belt is attached between this drive pulley and this large pulley here, we don't have belts in working model. We can either build coupler relationships by writing some sort of a math function using motors. That's a little more challenging. An easier way to do it is to use gears. So I'll click on the gear tool and I'll click on that center snap, and I'll click on this center point there. It should snap to the center. And if I double click this rod right there, I can turn off the rod. I don't need it for this. All I want is a coupled relationship between the ratios. And it's going to automatically compute it based on the size of the geometries that were attached, or that the gear was attached to. So you can override this by unchecking that. I'm just going to leave it for this purpose here. So now if we take a look at this, we can see that this pulley is driving that in the opposite direction. So we'd like them to go in the same direction. So we can get into the gear properties and we can specify a negative value for the gear ratio. And now they're going in the same direction, but our drive pulley should be going slower. So our ratio is reversed, so we can just change this to a negative 0.75. Now we'll connect the medium-sized pulley to the gray shaft. So if we can click on this body, we know that it's in front. If you want to move a body to the back, or the front. For example, you can click on this pulley right here, choose Object, Move to Front. And now if you bring another body in and connect it to this, or put a pin joint right there, it's going to connect it to the body it finds immediately underneath it. So you can think of these as in layers as you use that tool. Oops, undo my drag. I need to move that to the back because I can't get to that other pulley now because I moved this object to the front. So let's send that to the back. Now I can get in there and I can click that green pulley. So think of these in layers, and you're moving them forward and backward using these two commands right here. Now if something needs to be attached to the background, you need to do it at the very beginning. You will not be able to attach something to the background if you have multiple bodies stacked up. Because it will not. It will always find another body underneath it. It will never find the background. So you need to do that first, like we did. We first connected the shaft to the ground with pin, and then we connected this red disc to the shaft with a fixed joint, and then we added the gear. So If we go ahead and we send this shaft to the back, and now we bring in this medium-sized pulley, and then we add a fixed joint or a rigid joint, it's now fixing that rigid joint to that red large pulley. So if we run this to verify, let's make sure that it's connected, and it is. Okay, and if we want to get that shaft to show up again, we can send this guy here to the back, send this guy to the back, and there we go. So now we have the full system showing. So we would repeat the procedure for this second one here. So let's just do that again, and then I'll let you do the third. So since all the geometry is the same, I'll just grab all that. I'll do a Control-C, click out in the space, Control-V, and then with these objects still highlighted like this, click, hold, and drag. And there we go. So the constraints may not be entirely correct. I think it's important to make sure, because we won't be able to attach this to the ground now. So it's important to make sure everything is cleared out of there. And let me Control-Z because I think I accidentally deleted that shaft. Let me just grab the pins. There we go. So these components are separated. So once again, let's see where that needs to be positioned, about right there. First thing you need to do is whatever's connected to the background, connect it to the background. There's our pin joint. Next we bring in our medium-sized pulley, and notice I can't see where it's that line right here is snapping to that. So what I can do is I can move this object to the front, and then if we do like this, there we can see it. Okay, and now if I go ahead and I use my rigid joint, whatever body it finds immediately underneath the red body, it will connect using that joint. So now those two parts are connected. So I want to move this to the back so that I can see the shaft. And if I look at it, so it's just pinned to the ground, and this is pinned to the shaft. So not much is happening right now. So we'll go ahead now and we'll define, let's move this body back to the front, and we need to connect this green pulley right here to the large pulley. So let's send this shaft to the back, and looks like this object is already in the back. So this is at the topmost layer right here. Now we can click on the gear tool, click the center point, click the other center point. We have our gear. We can remove the rod. I don't know what the ratio is going to be. Let's go ahead and run it. It's going the opposite direction, and so we're going to want it going the same direction. So like we did before, we can reverse that, and whatever that ratio might be, let's say negative 0.75. Okay. Alright, so and then we would do just like we did before, we can move this part into position, and we lost it there. Obviously this guy right here was in the foreground, so let's move it to the background, and let's move the shaft to the background, and we'll go ahead and we'll add a rigid joint, and then just a matter of shuffling these objects. There we go. And there's our pulley system starting to come into play here. So hopefully that's helpful.